Hey there, friends. How you doing? So I am going to apologize in advance for the length of this video because I have a feeling it's going to take me some time to get out everything that needs to come out during this video. I have, in preparing for it, realized why I have never gone viral and why my follower count is not off the rails on social media. And it is because I can simply not be short-winded about anything that I talk about when it comes to astrology. I have in recent months become quite disillusioned with not with astrology, but with astrologers. I guess pop culture astrology has become a thing, and perhaps it always was. I don't know, but it seems social media seems to be overrun with people who are just extremely superficial and soundbite oriented. And, me not being able to clock a single video at less than 7 or 8 minutes, my stuff never gets recommended to anybody outside the people who already follow me. So, I'm going to try to get creative with this video and see if I can't, get some more people to see it. But I am going to be talking about the new moon solar eclipse that we are experiencing this weekend. What it means in and of itself, but also in the larger picture, because it's a lot. I have mentally, emotionally, and spiritually prepared myself for this talk. I have notes everywhere. I'm drinking my liver detox tea, my homemade liver detox tea, which really helps mama flush out those angry feelings because the way the world is these days, it makes me fucking angry. I'm burning my Kaifi and Banish um, blend that I just threw together, both of which were provided to me by the lovely Nicole Henley. You should check her out. If you don't already have all of her stuff, you should get it. Because I'm really just trying to keep all of the negativity out of the space while I discuss this because it's like I said, it's a lot. And but I think it needs to come out. I've been a little hesitant lately to talk astrology because the magnitude of what's happening in the sky and now, as above, so below here on Earth has been hard. I was getting accused kind of left and right of being doom and gloom, which fair, right? I take the criticism. I can take constructive criticism. I mean, I went to fucking law school, so I trust me. I've been ripped to shreds many, many times in my life and career, and it's okay. I'm still standing. But it's really hard when you have an overwhelmingly difficult, energetic presence for a long time, to couch it in terms of rainbows and unicorns. And so rather than continuing to try to fit myself into that box, I shut up. I just I just shut up. Partly out of spite, but also just because, I don't ever want to be interpreted as someone who's, trying to spread negativity. That is like so not what I'm trying to do. My job is to prepare and to inform. And so yeah, I don't know. I guess that's all I'll say about that. But we're gonna dive into this today. You may like what I have to say. You may not like what I have to say. I don't give a shit anymore. I'm going to say it. That said, I welcome discourse and discussion. If anybody has any questions, comments, quips, anything at all, if you have opposing views and you want to discuss them, I am always open to discussion, debate, as long as it is cordial and friendly. I I'll just say this right now. I was very, very shaken by the death of Charlie Kirk. I would not say by any stretch that I followed him regularly or that I agreed with everything he had to say. Certainly not. What I did admire about him was what has been said so many times over the past week to 10 days since he died, that he was a gentleman always, at least that I saw. He was smart, well read, and never engaged in ad hominem attacks, even though he was constantly on the receiving end of them. And really, again, whether you agree or disagree with him, is of no matter. What he represented, right, the ability to speak freely about sensitive topics, to hold space for opposing views, and to always remember that the humanity of the person on the other side is crucial, especially now, at a time where they seek to divide us more than ever. Um, and so the death of someone who stood for those things is awful. There's not really much else I can say about it other than that. So, in his honor and his memory, I'm gonna speak out about what I see in the sky, and I'm gonna be unapologetic about it the way that he was. So, oh, all right. We have, well, I guess before I dive into the astrology, let me preface a little bit. So if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I run a moon manifestation group. And if you are interested in learning more about it or joining it, please, please, please let me know. I can link it. Um, and what we do is every month we get together and we discuss the astrology around the new moon and also the full moons. And it's about the astrology of the lunations as a standalone, but also for my subscribers, I then go in and apply it to their natal chart, right? Because, for example, the last new moon that we had was at 0 degrees of Virgo. That's true for everybody, but that doesn't look the same for everybody, right? For some people, that could be first house. For some, it could be 10th. For some, they could have Jupiter there, right? There's so many different things that could happen. And so what I do is I kind of teach about what the moon means, again, as a standalone, but then I give, even more tailored information about what it means for you. And the reason that I do this is because I'm a big believer in using the moon and the moon's energies to manifest. Why? Because the moon is the ambassador of our emotional body and our subconscious. It's our soul, right? And so if you can orient yourself rightly to the energies that are uplifting your soul at any given time, you can then project your will out into the world and manifest a reality that aligns with your highest and greatest good. I know this is true and possible because I have been doing it for years and I have taught other people to do it as well. But it does involve a pretty in-depth understanding of astrology and how it works, and not a lot of people have that, or they don't have the time for it. And so I don't mind taking the guesswork out of it for people. It's still up to my subscribers to actually put it into practice and put their manifestations in motion. But I give them all the tools to be able to do it. So we kicked off a new season of moon manifestation back in March with the Aries solar eclipse, right? So that was obviously the new year, the real new year, not the fucking fake one that we celebrate January 1st in the middle of Capricorn season, but the actual one, right, with the move of the sun into Aries and the subsequent new moon, which just so happened to be a solar eclipse this year, the last in the Aries Libra series that we had been dealing with since 2023. And at that time, with the kickoff of this new solar cycle, which we're now halfway through, I wrote, as I do in every month, I wrote what I call my astrologer's notes for the moon. And I'm going to read this because sometimes things get really literal. And again, this is with kind of Charlie Kirk in mind. And again, I don't give a shit how you feel about him. I really don't. But it's poignant because whether you agreed or disagreed, whether you are somebody who is sad about his death or celebrating in the streets, you cannot deny the ubiquitous nature of the death and the reporting on the death and everything else, right? Like, I think everybody realized this is something very fucking profound shifted. And so I'm going to read this. The Aries new moon solar eclipse took place at 9 degrees of Aries. It was opposite the vertex, which was at the time 7 degrees of Libra. And so therefore it was conjunct the anti-vertex, which would be 180 degrees opposite. And what I wrote about that was hits to the anti-vertex are notorious for bringing out of the blue and seemingly meant to be events into our lived reality. But here's the catch. With the anti-vertex, what comes through is here to teach you about your own inner world. It's intrapersonal, not interpersonal. And that all flows very well with the overall theme of not just this new moon solar eclipse, again, back in Aries, but the whole Aries Libra series that we're winding down. How often do we base our sense of self upon what we perceive others to think of us? Too much, says this new moon, entirely too much. And how often do we realize that we're doing that? Practically never. Enter the Aries solar eclipse, a massive turning point where we can take the reins back on our own identity and embody a truly conscious expression of our most authentic self. So, for those of you who didn't get the reference, Turning Point USA was the name of Charlie Kirk's company. Coincidence? Maybe. I don't fucking believe in coincidence, but whatever. I also, when I write, am channeling almost 100% of the time. And so who knows? But anyway, um, so that came through back then. And so, whatever, when the Aries new moon kicks off a cycle, you really do have to kind of pay attention. You have to take that energy with you throughout the cycle. Okay. And the fact that the Aries new moon in this particular cycle was a solar eclipse conjunct the anti-vertex really did signify that whatever changes we were making for ourselves in the coming year, um, they were going to be big, right? They were going to be really big and they were going to be very profound. And that, in fact, collectively speaking, this entire fucking year is a turning point for all of us, right? For all of us. Now, that it just so happens that the Aries new moon was the most tame in the entire solar cycle, because when you bump it out, what you see is that as you go along, throughout the entire year, the new moons that we've experienced have been absolutely fucking pummeled by the outer planets. Not all of them all the time, but since Aries, which was just conjunct the anti-vertex and nothing else was going on, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and both Virgo new moons, and then beyond, we've got some combination, any of or all of Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all having their say, which is unlike anything I've ever seen. And I've been doing this moon manifestation with people since it's been over, I think this is my 6th year of doing it with people. And so I've been intimately connected to the energy of all of the new moons for the past 6 years. And I've never seen anything like this. Like, if anything, you'll get one or two in a cycle that are this crazy, right? There's this much influence from the outer planets. To have every single one of them back to back to back to back relentless like this is absolutely fucking bananas. Like, I cannot overemphasize how insane it is. And given the overall astrology of 2025 and the fact that we are moving into this space of change and transformation, it kind of makes sense, right? So to put some more context around what that means, the we've got all of the outer planets moving, right? Changing signs. Now, Pluto's already done it. Pluto is into Aquarius and he's there to stay. But you'll remember the last few years have been punctuated by his moves back and forth from Capricorn into Aquarius and how disruptive that was, right? By itself. Now we've got Saturn, Neptune moving from Pisces into Aries, right? So they're in the process of doing their back and forth right now. And in 2026, we'll push into Aries for good. And Uranus doing the same thing. He's currently in the process of doing his dance back and forth between Taurus, Gemini, but eventually in 2026, he will push into Gemini for good, meaning that all of the outer planets have now moved or are in the process of moving from the feminine polarity, right? So the earth and water signs, into the masculine polarity, air and fire. Okay. Meaning that fence sitting is no longer going to be permissible we're still in between, but you can see that it is starting to become less and less comfortable for the people who just want to sit back and passively kind of work their way through life. We're not going to be permitted to do that for too much longer. Once 2026 hits and everything moves on into that masculine polarity, you're gonna be forced to kind of to pick a side, to choose some action and some movement. I don't see that there's going to be any two ways around that. So, enter Virgo. That is where our solar eclipse is on Sunday, right? So Sunday, the 21st of September coming up. I'm on the East Coast of the United States. And so 3:54 p.m. is when the solar eclipse perfects for me here. You can adjust for your own time zone. But it is at 29 degrees and 5 minutes of Virgo at the very, very end of the sign, which I thought was extremely interesting, especially given the fact that the last new moon that we experienced back in August was at the 0 degree of Virgo. Okay, so we're having two consecutive new moons in Virgo. That is a black moon, right? The one that we're about to experience, the solar eclipse, is the black moon. I don't know. So many people on social media were talking about the last one being a black moon. Um, Maybe because we had two in August. I don't even remember what they were saying, but that is not correct. This is the black moon, the one that we're about to experience, and also a solar eclipse. Now, having consecutive moons in Virgo, we have this is the sixth and the seventh moon, right? The first one at 0 degrees was the sixth new moon of the cycle, the solar cycle, and the one that we're about to experience is the seventh new moon of the solar cycle. And I just want to pause for a quick second because I had a moment when I was writing out my notes for this where I realized that like if you have a teenager or a preteen in your house, you've heard 6 7, 6 7, 6 7. And like for the longest time, my kids have been doing it. And I'm just like, oh my God. So like I'm at the point with it where I'm just like, this is so friggin' annoying. But then as I was writing this out, like I wrote Virgo and then I wrote 6 and 7. And it clicked for me that I was like, holy shit, like, could it be that like these kids, without even realizing it, have been like alerting us to, the importance of these back-to-back Virgo new moons? I know that sounds a little bit out there, but like, again, I don't believe in coincidence and synchronicities can be crazy complex. So just kind of put a pin in that and see how that feels for you. But that's where we're at, right? So house number 6 is where Virgo lives. And so her new moon, her first one, was the sixth in the series. And because we have 13 new moons in a solar cycle, there's always one that duplicates. And this year, it just so happens to be that it's Virgo. So we have one at 0 and another one at 29. That's the one that's coming up. And so that's hugely significant because 0 and 29 are, as you probably know, considered to be critical degrees in astrology, no matter what sign. So if you have anything in your chart in the 0 degree, it is critical placement for you. You should really take note of that placement, what it means for you, what the planetary energy is, because it means that your soul is starting a brand spanking new cycle in the area of energy represented by that planet. And so, similarly, on the other end, when you reach the 29th degree, similar thing, right? So my sun is at 29 degrees of Aquarius, and so I get this lesson pretty much all the time. But when you have something at the 29th degree, the indication is that your soul has kind of been there, done that, and is winding down a lesson. And there is an extreme sense of urgency that comes along with the 29th degree because at soul level, you know that this is your last chance to get it right. You are about to be bumped into an entirely new cycle of energy, and therefore it becomes incumbent upon you to really figure it the fuck out this time. Okay. So that energy is very, very much present for us right now. And indeed, I have talked to several people in the last few days in particular who have all expressed in different ways, right, in different areas of their life, because again, these new moons are not hitting all of us in the same way, that they have this sense of urgency, like I just needed to get it done. I just needed to have it finished. I'm not going to have a lot of time to get it done. And like, there's no real objective reason for them to feel that way, but they all do. Okay. So if you're living with that type of energy right now, where you just feel like, oh my God, I need to get this done. I need to get this done. Know that that's, that's cosmic. Okay. And be honest with yourself about whether you really do need to get it done, because it's, sometimes that energy can kind of take over and override your logic. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. But yeah, so 29th degree, significant in and of itself, but it's just one piece of what is a very large puzzle when we talk about this upcoming solar eclipse. So let's talk a little bit about Virgo as a sign, right? New moon solar eclipses obviously are, they bring fated events. Eclipses tend to bring, I always liken them to spinning the Wheel of Fortune. And, I'm dating myself by saying this, but I watched the Wheel of Fortune game show a lot as a child. I grew up in the 80s, and so it was on TV pretty much all the time. And, they spin the wheel and there's that fucking terrifying, 30 seconds where you're just like, oh my God, like, where's it going to land? That's where we live right now, right? And whenever the eclipse window opens up, the cosmos kind of spins the wheel of fate on us. And so it can feel very off-putting, like we're all over the place. And so that's where we are. And that mercifully comes to an end, hopefully for us, on Sunday with this Virgo solar eclipse. But Virgo itself, to understand the sign and kind of what she stands for and what she means, she is a gateway house. Okay. So when you are looking at a chart, you can see, and I mean, I have a chart here and but it's not really oriented the right way, but you can still kind of see this. There's a line that goes through a chart. Okay. You can separate it very much in half, right? So there's the top half and the bottom half. And down here in the natural zodiac, you would have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, right? So those are houses 1 through 6. Then you have Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, houses 7 through 12. The bottom half of the wheel is the personal side of the wheel, houses 1 through 6. And the top half of the wheel, houses 7 through 12, is what we call the transpersonal side of the wheel. And essentially, what happens is that every single house represents a lesson. The lessons that we learn down here on the bottom half of the wheel are personal lessons, right? They're really not meant to involve anybody else. It's about us and us alone. And then we get bumped up kicking and screaming, whether we like it or not, into houses 7 through 12. We age into it eventually, right? Like we evolve and grow up and we become, old enough to kind of play in these arenas. And, stuff starts to become about other people, places, and things. Now, that doesn't mean that we neglect self completely, but, the lessons compound and accumulate over time. And eventually, you find yourself kind of living up in the 7 through 12th area of life a lot of the time, it does help if you come back to the self side every now and again, especially if, your adventures up in houses 7 through 12 alert you to the fact that you have some deficiencies, down in houses 1 through 6. So house number 6, Virgo, is really where we are meant to kind of consolidate our position, if you will. Okay. So houses 1 through 5, we're learning all these lessons, right? We're growing up, we're becoming a fully formed human. And house number 6 is where we get to kind of be like, all right, I think I know who I am. I think, I understand that I have, that I'm a spirit inhabiting a human body, that I need things to survive. I got to keep this soft machine alive, right? I have a mind, I can speak, I have friends, I have a community. I like to bounce ideas around off of people. I feel love, I feel passionate, I'm creative, right? I have things that I'm interested in. I feel my emotions. I'm intuitive, right? You learn all of these things, or at least you're supposed to learn all of these things as we travel through the time of life where we're taken through, houses 1 through 5. And then you get to house 6, and it's really about kind of taking stock of that. Because, like I said, what's going to happen eventually is you are going to get bumped up into house number 7 and beyond. And if you are not bringing a fully formed and functional human into houses 7 through 12, you're going to get eaten alive. At the very least, you are going to become codependent, right? Virgo is very much a sign that is about learning how to adult so that you don't get eaten alive when you get up into the kind of transpersonal adult sphere of energy, right? Where big picture things are happening. You always know a person who doesn't know their Virgo lessons. You can always tell them. They're the types of people that literally can, no matter how old they get, they cannot seem to get their shit together, right? They're always relying on the people around them, their parents, right? Other friends, whatever. They just cannot seem to get anything done on their own. They constantly need to be in a relationship. They burn through friends like crazy, right? There's just, something very needy about them, and it turns other people off, right? So Virgo is an extremely, extremely important house. It's mundane. There's nothing sexy about Virgo for the most part, especially considering that she's sandwiched between Leo and Libra, which are both like very relationship oriented signs. You have Virgo in the middle kind of being like, well, I need to make sure that my sleep hygiene is good, and I need to make sure that I check all these boxes off. Like, here's my to-do list, got to go food shopping, right? Like all that stuff, that mundane day-to-day stuff. But I'll tell you what, it's one of the most important things that we can possibly do for ourselves. As boring as it may sound or may be, if you don't master the art of getting yourself through a day with maximum efficiency, you will not make much of yourself here in this manifested reality. You simply won't, right? You just won't. And that's, that can be a harsh reality for some people, but it's true. She really is where we learn how to be responsible. She's also a very service-oriented sign, right? She exists on the same axis of service with Pisces, but the thing is, this is kind of the Virgo paradox. A lot of people don't realize this. Because she exists on the personal side of the wheel, it's really about service to self. And people who have heavy Virgo energy tend to be very service oriented towards others, which gets them in a lot of trouble. So they walk through life really pouring from an empty cup, and they become very, very resentful. And that's where they go. That's when they go to that hermit archetype, right? That's when you have to really worry about that. So all of this stuff. Why am I harping on Virgo? Well, because we're at the 29th degree, right? The solar eclipse is happening at the 29th degree. And so I'm really trying to give you a comprehensive idea of what the sign is about and how she evolves from 0 to 29 so that you can kind of see where do these themes show up in your life, right? Is there an area of your life where you could stand to grow up a little bit? Is there an area of your life where you've really been slacking? Is there, and maybe not, right? Maybe not. Maybe there are just some places in your life where some updates and some upgrades could serve you well, right? Maybe you just need to engage in a little more self-care. It doesn't have to look any certain way, but it can be somewhat selfish. And I know that that sounds paradoxical, especially when we're talking about a sign like Virgo, but trust me, that's the Virgo paradox. Somehow, by making sure that Virgo is taking care of herself first, she manages to free up all the energy that she needs to take care of everybody else's bullshit. And she does it sans resentment, right? That's the kicker. Because she'll do it either way, but if she's not taking care of self first, she'll be resentful as hell. All right. So that's really the lesson of this solar eclipse on a more personal level. What are you doing? Where are you bleeding out energetically for other people unnecessarily? Stop doing that, right? Stop it, right? That's because there's no room for that anymore because we are cosmically being bumped into this crazy fucking future where there's not really going to be time for anybody or energy to kind of just like deal with everyone else's bullshit. It's going to very much be kind of about like myself and my immediate tribe. And like that's kind of sort of going to be it. Okay. Why do I say that? Well, because this new moon, like all of the new moons that we've experienced, most of them anyway, in this cycle, like I said, with the exception of Aries, is getting absolutely fucking pummeled by the outer planets, which is a theme that is taking us through this entire solar cycle. Now, this one, thankfully, is somewhat benign. Okay. We had a grand fixed cross with the Taurus ones. We've had others where we're getting squares and trines, right? So there's very dynamic but mixed bag energy. This one, for the most part, is completely contained and very beneficial. So as you can see, is why I put it up here. This is what we call a kite formation, aptly named, right? It looks just like a fucking kite. Excuse me. And the new moon up here, the solar eclipse, right at Virgo, 29 degrees, is the apex of the kite. And so when we have a kite formation, what we have is a grand trine, right, which you can see here. It's this circle, this triangle, but there is one of the sides of the triangle, or one of the angles of the triangle, I should say, is being opposed, right, which pulls the energy out a little bit, okay? Because what happens when you have a grand trine, again, supremely wonderful energy and extremely harmonious energy. But the problem with trines is that they can be very, very lazy. Because things flow so easily in a trine, it can be extremely easy to just completely overlook the beneficial nature of them, right? They can literally just float by you without you ever realizing that they were there in the first place. All right. So we don't run that risk when we have a kite formation, reason being that there is an opposition, right? This opposition here in the middle alerts us to some tension. And that tension is what fuels the growth, right? It allows the grand trine to actually realize itself and to evolve and to grow and to move in a certain direction rather than to just stay this like nice little self-contained, like, right? So we actually really appreciate this opposition, even though it does bring some static. Now, I want to talk about this, keeping in mind that this will look different for every single person. And there may be, and I'm willing to bet that there are a lot of you for whom this particular solar eclipse is not going to manifest too personally. And the reason I say that is because you pretty much have to have something at either 29 degrees or 0 degrees in order for this to really, really apply in your life. Otherwise, and even people who have that, it's an eclipse, right? And so eclipses are kind of I don't want to say like a complete exception, but they are somewhat of an exception to the rule of free will, right? Eclipses have been known to override people's free will quite frequently because they're, they bring fated and destined events, right? And so if if you're exercising your free will in a way that destiny is just kind of like, yeah, no, we're going over here, trust and believe that the eclipse is going to make sure that you don't go, that you go in the direction that you're supposed to. So, that for that reason, what I'm going to talk about when we go through the kind of dynamics of this kite are, I'm really looking more big picture, more globally. Okay. So let's go through the kite, because in order to really understand it, you have to look at the all of the pieces and put them together. Okay. So what I said before about the grand trine and the tension that's caused by the opposition that's here in the middle, that's going to be true for any kite formation that you see anywhere in anybody's chart. But it means different things depending on who are the players, right? What are the planets that are there and what signs are they in, right? How's that working? So this one is picking up the energy of all of the outer planets that are, as I said before, in the process of moving from the feminine polarity to the masculine polarity, except for in the case of Pluto, who is already firmly ensconced in the masculine polarity in Aquarius. Okay. So we've got the solar eclipse up here. All right. We've already talked about what she means and what she's trying to do, right? 29 degrees of Virgo, service to self, all that fun stuff. Now, how do we reconcile all of this down here? All of this. So the place I want to start is with this right here. So we've got Pluto in Aquarius, trine Uranus in Gemini. Now these guys, technically, we're getting real technical right now, have not formed an exact trine yet, nor will they until 2026. But as you can see, Pluto's at 1 degree and 28 minutes as of Sunday. Uranus is at 1 degree 21 minutes as of Sunday. That is fucking good enough for government work. These guys are in trine aspect to each other and have been for some time. Okay. So even though they won't perfect until next year, anybody who doesn't count this as a trine is just absolutely ridiculous. So we have this trine in play throughout a good portion of 2025 and through 2029. All right, these two will be in trine aspect to each other through 2029. So a solid 4-ish years, we're going to have them in trine aspect to each other. And what does that mean? Well, it means a lot, right? I want to also just kind of note quickly that they're not going to be in exaction or even this close. Uranus is the faster mover of the two. So there's going to be periods of time where he kind of pulls away from Pluto a little bit, but it won't be until 2029 that he really kind of takes off and leaves Pluto behind. So this will wax and wane, as do most energies in astrology. But right now, it's particularly tight, okay? And there will be times in the coming years where it gets even tighter, believe it or not. All right, so let's talk about these moving parts. And I have some notes here, so that's why I'm looking over here. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. So Pluto trine Uranus, 2025 to 2029. Both planets are concerned with transformation. They also deliver absolute truth. Okay. That is something that I really want you to keep in mind. Absolute truth. To be aware that what is being presented to us now is absolute truth. Ugly as hell, but absolute nonetheless. The way that these planets deliver absolute truth to us, they use very different mechanisms, both unpleasant. Pluto is the excavator. He's digging the truth up from below and kind of coughing it up to us. Uranus, the sky god, is throwing it down at us in the form of lightning bolts, right? So you can't deny what you're seeing because the two of them are basically just coming at us from both angles and being like, this is the truth, the ugly, harsh truth, all of it, okay? Let's see. Trine means transfer. So this particular trine means transformation can proceed with little to no resistance. All right. Again, thinking of trines, they are very harmonious aspects. There is no resistance, at least as far as this line is concerned. All right. Now that sounds wonderful, and it is. It is. You can always trust that a trine is going to deliver you to your highest and greatest good. The problem is that we will have a complete and utter inability to pump the fucking brakes. And I think that we're seeing that now, right? All of a sudden, it really feels like we're on the skid towards Armageddon, and there's no stopping it. If that's how it feels for you, know that you are intuitively picking up on that, right? The lack of resistance, that we simply cannot stop the train that we're on. There's no going back to the way that things were before. That is guaranteed. Pluto delivers intensity while Uranus delivers a detachment. The two of these things, right? If Pluto and Uranus are in harsh aspect to each other, the combination of intensity plus detachment can be really fucking miserable. The intensity, the profundity, and the depth of Pluto often brings along very depressive feelings, whereas the detachment piece and the fast moving nature of Uranus can bring anxiety. So when you have them together, the potential is really there for both. And anybody who struggles with depression and anxiety simultaneously, you understand the fucking special hell that that is. Okay. But this is a trine, which means that chances are good that these two things will actually work together as opposed to, being disparate, right? So what that looks like is this skid, right? This kind of push, right? This relentless kind of push towards whatever the future brings, but enough detachment to stay rational about it, right? To not get too deep in your feelings about it and to kind of understand, even if it's just at soul level, that this is the way that we're supposed to go. And I'm not going to dig in my heels and I'm not going to sit and I'm not going to think about it too much. Like I'm just going to let the current carry me the way that the way that I need to go. I can think about it more when I get there, right? I'm not going to sit here and get lost in the nitty gritty and the details right now. So again, harmonious and beneficial, but relentless. I wrote that in all caps. Relentless and absolute. The truth will be uncovered and the old ways will be dismantled, right? There's no question. And we are seeing it. It is already happening. It's the beginning and it's going to get more intense and, we're going to get more detached from it, but it will continue for years to come. All right. Please, please, please understand that because this is not energy, that's just going to pass all of a sudden. These outer planets, they're generational planets for a reason, right? They operate on across very large swaths of time. Okay. Now, this trine, right? This trine right here is being enclosed, if you will, into a grand trine by the solar eclipse. But this right here exists by itself. Then we have the opposition, right? So this is the tension line, this red line here down the middle. This is what alerts us to the need to work this energy. Because again, the idea here with the trine is that it's just so lovely and flowing. And then even this, right? These sextiles are also very gentle angles. So the vast majority of this energy is soft and loving and da 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 da, right? And then you have this tension that kind of alerts us to the fact that, like, oh, wait a minute. No, 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 no. I need to like actually work this to bring myself to this highest and greatest. Okay. So we've got Pisces and Aries. Sorry, Pisces. Yeah, Pisces and Aries, Saturn and Neptune. And these guys are currently straddling Pisces and Aries. Saturn is already back in Pisces. He got into Aries for a little while, but he's dipped back into Pisces. Neptune is about to do the same thing, right? And then again, like I said, in 2026, both of these guys will push into Aries and they'll stay there for good. So these ones, ugh, I actually am really hating Neptune, Saturn together. I've obviously none of us have ever experienced well, that's not true. We've experienced Saturn conjunct Neptune before, but not on this line, right? Not on the Alpha Omega fucking line of the zodiac, right? Crossing from Pisces into Aries. It's particularly miserable. I did a video earlier where I likened it to childbirth. Right. You can read all the fucking books that you want to on and watch all the videos and be as informed as you possibly can on what it's like to give birth. But until you are in there in those fucking stirrups, like you are not going to know, right? Nobody could ever possibly explain to you what it's like to actually bring a life forth, right? Similar, right, to the energy that we're experiencing with this kind of Saturn Neptune and their conjunction and their move collective from Pisces into Aries, right? It's I read about it for months in the lead up to the actual happening of it, but of course, that kind of pales in comparison to sitting here and experiencing it in real time. So Neptune in Aries is a walking contradiction, right? A spiritual planet moves into the sign of war, right? The ruler of the last house enters into the first house, right? This is spiritual war, plain and simple. And again, I think you don't really need to look too far to see that playing out. All of the right-wing Christian people are out in fucking force in support of Charlie Kirk. I have no opinion on that one way or another, right? I do not identify as a Christian. I do not identify as right versus left. I swear to you, I am firmly in the fucking middle. And in fact, can't stand any of the divisiveness, really. I can't. But it is not too hard to see that there is a war of good and evil breaking out, right? Which is just plainly a spiritual war. Neptune is about to dip back into Pisces, right? So there's some loose ends, obviously, that he has to tie up, a little more delusion that he wants to deliver to us, right? He wants to, I guess, make one last ditch attempt to fool the masses into thinking that everything's okay. Don't look over here at all of the fucking inconsistencies about the lone fucking shooter theory. Just look over here at, other things, right? Other things, because we're the government and we love you. So that probably expect that to start kind of kicking up again in the coming months, but I don't think we fall for it. And I'll get to that in a minute. Saturn, as I said, has already moved back into Pisces. In Aries, he's rules and obligations like he is everywhere. But he's happier in Aries because in Aries, he actually gets to focus and fucking do something. Saturn in Pisces is a special kind of hell because he's trying to bring form to the formless. So him coming back in here again is another indication that like we missed something, right? There's one area that of Pisces, that we can kind of try to shore up a little bit. Don't expect too much success here because he really is fighting a losing battle. It's very, very uphill for Saturn in Pisces, but he's not going to be here for too long, right? So the tension that they're creating down at the bottom is really meant to alert us to the overall pattern, which is, look, we are the fucking collective, right? Like, we are the collective, right? Like we are the ones driving this bus, right? We are the ones that could actually just move the chess pieces however the fuck we want to, but we need to be able to get it all together. And I think maybe the spiritual war that is being commenced kind of down here is meant to alert us to that fact, right? That it really isn't us versus them, or it is us versus them. It's not left versus right, right? It's good versus evil. And there are still a lot of people who are kind of confused about this messaging, right? I think that in the past week or so, 10 days since Charlie Kirk died, I have been more hopeful about humanity than I have since 2020, right? Since COVID hit. And the reason being that I'm starting to, it definitely started off with a lot of, left versus right, the typical divide and conquer, right? Which is how they keep us, how they keep us divided so that they can continue to fucking pull all their bullshit. But I'm seeing more and more people wake up to the truth about what's really going on and who the actual enemies are. And that is extremely, extremely hopeful. Why? Well, because war, right? Because war. And this is where I go into what will probably be called by some as the fear mongering. However, I'm going to say it and I'm going to say it without reservation. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I don't see any other outcome. I welcome, and I'm going to look at the fucking camera when I say this. I welcome any other astrologer or spiritual. I mean, you don't have to be an astrologer, although it would probably help because I'm very much reading the stars. I welcome anybody who wants to come and tell me what other possible interpretation they could have for all of this. Because I don't see it, right? Like I simply don't see it. Okay. I realize I didn't get to the Uranus part, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. Um, I actually have a chart. Like I literally wrote it all out. So I'm going to briefly go into this. Okay. Solar eclipse. We talked about this. Pluto and Aquarius. Profound systemic change leading to collective awakening, right? These are kind of like the sound bites, if you will. Keywords: decentralization, egalitarianism, technological advancement. Love it, right? Saturn and Neptune, the spiritual war that alerts us to all of it, but also the civil war. Okay. Those of you who have studied astrological history know that the last time Neptune entered, Aries, was the start of the American Civil War. Okay. Similarly, the last time Pluto entered Aquarius was the start of both the American Revolution and the French Revolution. Okay. Uranus in Gemini. This guy over here is radical and rapid transformation in technology and communication, leading to new ways of thinking. Okay. So we're all getting a mental upgrade by this guy over here. Keywords: societal disruption, challenges to the status quo, and upheaval. Okay. It's very Uranian energy. And in a sign like Gemini, unfortunately, the chaos of Uranus is going to be maximized. It's going to feel very, very fucking different than Uranus through Taurus did. Uranus through Taurus was a hard slog. Uranus in Gemini is going to absolutely kick our ass. It's already happening, right? Like it's already happening. Civil War and World War II, I wrote. Now, the last time Uranus was in Gemini was World War II. The time before that was, again, the American Civil War. All right. So on all fronts down here, all fronts, we have clear-cut associations with war. Now, why does this matter? Well, I mean, it matters for a lot of reasons, right? That's a pretty fucking rhetorical question that I just threw out there. Um, what I see, and I'm being a little bit repetitive now, but I'm going to say it again, is the planets are telling us that war is coming. The question, though, remains, will it be a civil war between, divided factions within our country? Or will it be a revolutionary war where we all come together as one and fight the fucking demon that has been dogging us for almost 100 years, possibly longer, right? Um, I'm very hopeful, as I said before, that it is the latter. I'm very hopeful that it will be the latter. I can't say for sure, right? Obviously, so much remains to still play out, but just based on things that I'm watching on social media since Charlie Kirk's death, it does seem to me like a real serious awakening is happening, where people understand that, like, this is bullshit, right? Like, the thing about having all of these planets moving into, like, Pluto and Uranus in particular, moving into Aquarius and Gemini, very technologically, very information based signs. Okay. The internet's going to fucking win this. like it's become impossible for them to fool us the way that they have been able to fool us in the past, right? Because we have advanced technologically far beyond what they are able to, to defeat anymore. I do firmly believe this. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone is going to see it for what it is, but more and more people are. And for that, I am very thankful. Solar eclipse, bringing faded events, what can we do? The 29-degree Virgo solar eclipse says just work on being your best self, right? Work on being your best self at this point. That's all we can really do. Be logical, right? Be methodical about the way that, you're working. And in fact, I pulled a couple of things. I'll want to end this on like more of a positive note. There's two, when I do my moon manifestation stuff, I send a whole bunch of goodies to people. And one of the things that I like to send is, symbology, and kind of other modalities that I work with around the degree where the solar eclipse is going off. So the first one I do is I'll pull the cards, right? The tarot cards around the new moon. Solar eclipse in this case, right? So obviously we have, Virgo, Hermit. We've talked about Hermit energy and where that shows up for Virgo. The Magician, right? Mercury, the ruler of this moon. And the 29th degree in particular is part of the third decan and therefore is ruled by the 10 of Pentacles, which is the Lord of Wealth. Okay, so the 10 of Pentacles is a card that's concerned with income, inheritance, prosperity, long-term stability, sorry, and material comfort. It's a wonderful card, right? If you pull the 10 of Pentacles in a reading, your happiness is kind of almost assured, at least as much as it's on the material plane. Okay. Now there's only so much happiness that material things can ever bring us. However, material comfort is not to be overrated. Okay. So, and the reason that we get to that place, right, to that happy, abundant place is because we put in the fucking work, right? Mercury in Virgo, right? That's what's happening here. We're not sitting back and resting on our laurels. We're being methodical. We're taking care of business. We're not letting things slip through the cracks, right? We're going over and over and over again until we get as close to perfection as Virgo possibly can, because that's always her goal. The other thing that I'd love to include is the Sabian symbols. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Sabian symbols, check them out. I love the Sabian symbols, and I actually just realized it's the 100th anniversary of them, right? They were created or intuitively downloaded, I guess. I don't know if created is the right word, but they were brought into the earthly existence back in 1925 by astrologer Mark Edmund Jones and clairvoyant woman named Elsie Wheeler. And as the story goes, they got together one afternoon, I believe in California. I might be wrong about that. And Mark Edmund Jones had 360 index cards, and he wrote a number on each one, right? So from 1 to 360, or 0 to, I don't know. The numbers are off by 1, so I always get confused about them. But there were 360 cards, one that corresponded to each of the degrees of the zodiac. And he mixed them up and he handed them one by one to Elsie. And every time she got one in her hand, an image would come to mind. And she would write down the image, right? Or she would dictate the image and he would write it down. And so every single degree of the zodiac has some kind of visual or symbol that's associated with it, and they're absolutely fascinating, right? If even if you just kind of go through the ones that are relevant to your chart, you can learn so much about the energy around your planetary placements. Fascinating stuff. The Sabian symbol for the 29th degree of Virgo, get this, is having an urgent task to complete. A man doesn't look to any distractions. Okay. So, shorthand, I'm busy. I got a lot to do. I got something I got to get done. I cannot afford to be distracted. Okay. Put the fucking focus on your goddamn phone, right? I hate when that happens. See this? This is a new thing I just realized my phone does. Creeps me the fuck out. What are you doing? But yes, see, distraction, right? We live at a time where we are absolutely surrounded by distraction, and that is by design. Okay. If we are distracted and if they can keep us fucking distracted, they can pull the most egregious, ridiculous fucking shit. And they've been doing it. They've been doing it for so long. So it's time, right? It's time. This solar eclipse is literally saying to us, like, look up from your phones. Okay. Stop being so consumed by distraction, because distraction is it's just a time waster. Okay. There are things that need to get done that you either aren't completing or you aren't even starting because you are distracted. And that's a problem. We're not going to win this spiritual war if we're fucking distracted. Like, that literally cannot happen. Okay. So don't sell yourself out like that anymore. That's really what this new moon is asking of us. Like, stop selling yourself short. Stop giving into the distractions that they're giving to us, that they're dangling in front of us all the time, because we need you, right? Everybody, we need all fucking hands on deck. All right. Really just like avoid temptation and welcome in that energy of a job well done, right? Completion. I'm going to get this done. I am going to become that fully formed human, because we're all standing at the precipice of Libra, right? We are all about to get bumped up into the transpersonal side of the wheel, where the lessons repeat, but they're so much fucking more intense and they involve so many more people. All right. So let's, collectively come together and figure out how we're going to do this, because, the energy says, at least as of right now, that we have the ability to get this done, and that we have the ability to get this done relatively painlessly. Okay. But it's going to involve us actually coming together and understanding who the true enemy is, right? It's not the person on the other side of the aisle. It's not. It's not. It's totally okay for us to have opposing beliefs on things that affect our day to day. That's normal. And the fact that we have gotten so far away from that we're killing people who don't share our opinions is just abhorrent. And I think I firmly believe that the vast majority of my fellow Americans, no matter who the fuck you vote for, that you understand that, right? You do. And so we all need to just like put all of that bullshit aside and focus on fighting the real enemy at this point. So I send blessings to all of you. I hope that you are well and that you are abundant. And if you are not, I firmly believe that you have it within you to bring yourself back to that place. If I can be of any service to you in doing so, please do not ever hesitate to reach out to me.